Welcome to the second module in our 4th R Parent Webinar series. This module is part of a series of webinars designed to introduce parents and caregivers to the 4th R program and provide information on different issues adolescents may face as they navigate the teen years. There are currently 2 modules available, with more to be added in the future based on parent interest and feedback. In this module, we will discuss basic information on adolescent development. Our speaker on this module is Dr. Erin Curtain, who is affiliated with the Center for Prevention Science, a unit within the Social and Epidemiological Research Department at the Center for Addiction and Mental Health, Canada's largest mental health and addiction teaching hospital. Located in London, Ontario, the Center for Prevention Science houses the 4th R program and works with communities and schools across the country to promote healthy adolescence. Erin Curtain is a postdoctoral fellow at the Center for Prevention Science. Erin received her PhD in developmental psychology from Cornell University, where her work focused on adolescent development, specifically looking at teen dating violence and how it relates to poor health and well-being among adolescents and young adults. Past research projects in the area of interpersonal violence include investigating orders of protection for dating violence, how to promote bystander intervention among college athletes, the prevalence of sexual assault among people who identify as gay, lesbian, or bisexual, and exploring the nature of intimate partner homicides in Botswana. She has also worked with the U.S. Air Force to help design their Teen Dating Violence Prevention and Awareness Month activities. Welcome, Erin.
Thanks, Ryan. In the media and popular press, adolescence is presented as a time of major storm and stress between children and their parents. Parents are also presented as losing ground to peers and the media in terms of influence over their child. However, both of these messages do not present a typical picture. Based on research findings from the past several decades, the 4th R believes that parents have a key role to play in helping adolescents make healthy decisions. The popular press also tends to focus on the impact of parents on their child, but is less likely to discuss how the family unit as a whole transforms during adolescence. In this second module, we'll touch on typical adolescent development, basic information on parenting during the adolescent years, and also an overview of how the family unit changes during the adolescent period. Adolescent development involves several important transitions. One of the most obvious is pubertal development. The onset of puberty is generally considered the start of the adolescent period. Youth are taught about changes to the body during puberty as part of the grade 7 4th R curriculum. Puberty involves rapid growth in terms of both height and weight, the development of primary sex characteristics, like testes in males and ovaries in females, the development of secondary sex characteristics, like body hair and breast development, changes in the distribution of fat and muscle, and changes in the circulatory and respiratory systems. Both the timing and rate of puberty vary, with puberty starting as early as age 7 in girls and age 9.5 in boys, and as late as age 13 in girls and age 13.5 in boys. Research indicates that parent-adolescent conflict and distance may increase at puberty, regardless of the age at which the child enters puberty. Cognitive development during adolescence includes an improved ability to think about what is possible instead of just what is concrete and real, to use reasoning abilities, to see things as relative rather than absolute, and to think about abstract things, about the process of thinking, and to think in multidimensional ways, for example, by understanding sarcasm. With all these advancements in thinking and reasoning ability, it's no wonder why some adolescents are much better arguers than they were as children. The 4th R uses these advancements in thinking to help youth with their decision-making skills, their ability to weigh pros and cons, and their ability to consider multiple perspectives. Adolescent brains are also undergoing big changes. Their brains are being remodeled and becoming more efficient and effective, and are also becoming faster at processing information. Recent research has also found that development in the section of the brain that is involved in sensation seeking occurs earlier than development in the section that is involved in planning, thinking ahead, and self-regulation. The slower development of areas involved in resisting certain decisions and thinking ahead, combined with the faster development of areas that respond to rewards and social and emotional information, helps to explain why adolescence is a time of increased risk-taking behavior. As a result of this cognitive development, adolescents are more susceptible to risk-taking behavior when the situation is emotionally exciting or when they are in the presence of peers, kind of like a car that can go really fast but doesn't have very good brakes. The figure on this slide shows the results of research from Margot Gardner and Larry Steinberg, who found that adolescents were much more likely to take risks when they were with their friends than when they were alone. In this study, they had people in different age groups play a video game where the player had to decide whether to stop a car or keep going as a traffic light was turning from green to yellow. Participants played either by themselves or in the presence of two same-age, same-sex peers. Compared to adults, risky driving, as indicated by number of video game car crashes, which is shown on the vertical line on this graph, was much more likely when playing in the presence of peers versus when teens were playing alone. And this was true for both adolescents, ages 13 to 16, as well as late adolescents or young adults, ages 18 to 22, with the strongest effect found for those adolescents ages 13 to 16. And this effect is related to the faster development of the area in the brain that responds to rewards and social and emotional information, and the slower development of areas that help resist peer influence. Knowing this, the fourth R teaches adolescent skills that help them slow down situations by using delay or negotiation tactics to keep them from making an immediate decision they might later regret. Adolescence is also a time of social transition, where individuals start to be treated differently by society than they were as children. This occurs in multiple ways and is not an isolated event. Social development covers events that signal that the adolescent is no longer a child and are on their way to becoming a responsible adult member of society. These events include getting a driver's license, a first job, voting, moving out, potentially dating, and graduating from high school. Compared to biological and cognitive development, social development often shows greater cultural differences. In Canada and the US, the social period of adolescence is longer than it once was, often longer than a decade. In the fourth R, adolescents are asked to look at the social influences in their lives and evaluate the role that society and others, like peers and the media, play in shaping their decisions, values, and boundaries. Psychosocial development, or psychological development in the social environment, is also a key part of the adolescent period. Psychosocial development includes identity, or the way we see ourselves, autonomy, or a sense of independence, intimacy with both friends and potentially romantic partners, sexuality, and achievement, for example, graduating high school or preparing for work roles. The social environments that influence psychosocial development include peer groups, schools, neighborhoods, the media, and families. The fourth R also focuses on helping teens with their psychosocial development by asking them to identify their values when it comes to drug and alcohol use, sexual risk, nutrition and violence, and by teaching them to use assertive communication and delay, negotiation, and refusal skills so that they can exert their developing autonomy in competent and effective ways. We'll now talk briefly about how parents can influence adolescent development. Although this is sometimes downplayed by the popular press, parents continue to play a critically important role in helping their child develop in a healthy way throughout adolescence, just as they did when their child was younger. In research with many groups of parents over the past decades, 3 factors have consistently emerged as being important to raising healthy teens. The first is being warm, loving, and involved in your teen's life. However, it is also important to be firm and consistent in setting boundaries, rules, and limits. While the content of these rules will change as your child ages and will be different based on the unique personality of your child, boundary setting is important for all adolescents. Finally, it's important to encourage your child to develop their own opinions and beliefs and share their thoughts during family discussions. While you are the ultimate decision maker, by giving your child the opportunity to present their side of the argument and compromising if appropriate, You are building positive decision-making and negotiation skills. As often as possible, present reasoning for rules and boundaries and ground these limits in your love for them and your concern for their safety and well-being, and let them know this. Social media is another place where teens now develop their autonomy and identity. So it's also important to have a structure in place for this social environment, just as you would for other social environments where teens are experimenting and figuring things out, like when they're out with their friends or out on a first date. This can include setting up the computer in a public place, establishing ground rules, for example, around the amount of hours they can use per day, monitoring their online activity or knowing their passwords, or setting privacy controls. Like any rules, the amount of privacy and autonomy you give your teen will change with age, and no matter what the age, it is important to be open and honest about your plans for monitoring in order to maintain trust. While programs like the Fourth R are an important piece of the healthy development puzzle, because teen brains are wired for risk-taking behavior, optimal development includes both prevention activities, like discussing social media risks, and boundary activities, like putting the computer in a public place. The Fourth R also includes a media component in each unit, so that youth can start to learn how media impacts and influences their lives and decisions. While parents are important influencers of adolescent development, adolescents also have effects on their parents. During adolescence, healthy development in the Canadian cultural context involves teens starting to separate from their parents so that they can develop an individual identity and sense of autonomy, which will allow them to succeed in their future responsibilities. Adolescents also start to see their parents as flawed and capable of making mistakes, which is probably not news to anyone with a teen in their household. While these processes are important and necessary to healthy development, they can be hard for parents to cope with. Parents may also be struggling with their own identity issues as they enter midlife, adding to potential difficulties during the adolescent transition period. Although the belief is popular, high-intensity conflict between adolescents and parents is not that common. Instead, adolescence is more often a time when bickering and squabbling over more minor issues emerges, and it is often the parent and not the adolescent who is most upset by these conflicts. This may be because parents bring a different perspective to these conflicts. For example, parents may see a conflict over keeping their child's room clean as an issue of right or wrong, with implications for how they've raised their child, while their child sees it as a matter of personal choice and a conflict over privacy. Over time, the repetitive nature of these conflicts, combined with the parent's own transition at midlife and coping with their adolescent maturing into an autonomous adult, can weigh on a parent's well-being. So although it's definitely important for parents to think about how their parenting can affect their adolescent, it's also important to realize that parenting an adolescent can also affect the parent. While this may seem obvious, it is sometimes considered shameful to talk about or like it's a rare experience. Instead, it's a common experience that deserves discussion among parents and communities that support parents.
This brings us to the conclusion of Module 2, where our goal was to review some basics of adolescent development, discuss how parents can influence healthy adolescent development, and acknowledge how adolescents can also influence their parents. We hope you found the information in today's webinar useful. Thanks to Dayanara for sharing her knowledge and expertise on this topic. To close, we have included 10 brief messages from Larry Steinberg, an expert on adolescent parenting. The information presented in Module 2 was largely based on his work. If you have not already done so, click on the Module 1 video to view the first module in this series, which discusses background information on the Fourth R program. You may also revisit either of these modules at any time. We also hope you will attend our upcoming Parent Information Session. At this session, you will have more time to talk through the information presented in these modules, and you will also have the chance to meet and chat with other parents. If you have ideas for future webinars, we would love to hear them. If you are not sure if your child's school offers the Fourth R, you can contact your child's teacher or the school principal. Thank you for your time and participation.